everyone, and welcome to Narrative Nights. So tonight I have a very special guest with me, Valerie Huard. I probably didn't say that correctly, but she's an award-winning, trauma-informed decluttering expert. She's also the best-selling author of Put That Stuff Down, and I just love the name of that. So she's the co-founder and president of Do Well, and she really helps individuals declutter emotional, physical, and mental stuff that's stopping them from being their best, right? And as she has a history in trauma recovery and occupational therapy, so she is the one who did the Do Well method, and we're going to find out more about that. She's the one who created that. So please help me welcome Miss Well. Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, thank you so much.
So I'm very excited about. So can you tell people because Trump Trump is big, and so many people are really struggling today with unmet needs from childhood, and they don't really realize how that just continues to move throughout the rest of their life, right? And it does affect them. Some people become clutter bunnies, because they have a hard time letting go. Other people become overeaters. People get involved in addiction. So all these things are coping mechanisms, and they're really so ingrained in what happened as a child in those traumas. And maybe not necessarily trauma as a child. They could have experienced it in their 20s or their 30s, but the longer that it's there, the harder it is to really start to unpack it. And
I agree.
in my line of work, I'm in health. Um, a lot of people don't really put the connection together with something in the past to why they're having difficulty with weight, or why they have trouble, saying no, or doing that self-care. And it's because they really don't feel that value, because somewhere in, you know, those stages
Early
of
years.
development,
Yeah.
something was missing, that love and belonging, some need wasn't met. And I think it's so important what you're doing. So tell me more about Do Well method and how that helps.
Yeah, I really want to tell you about the dual method. Do you mind if just before I explain a little bit the link between trauma and clutter so people can really understand the method?
Sure, of course.
So in our book, we have a graphic. I will just show you quickly that we call the clutter vicious cycle. What happened basically is when someone had a trauma, the brain changed a little bit the way it works. And then what happened is people become on their fight or flight or freeze mode.
Mm.
The thing is, the body produced more cortisol for individuals that had trauma to keep them on that stage. And normally the cortisol goes up and down between night and day, but with someone that had trauma, it doesn't go as down at the night than other individual. So the cortisol is spiraling day after day, months after months, years, and decades after decades. So at some point, there's so much cortisol that it slow down the frontal lobe of the brain. And this is where our what we call the executive function. That means, our capability to plan, to organize, to sort things, to make decisions, focus, that kind of
Mm.
skills. So it's really, really hard to maintain a home tidy if our executive function are putting the brake on us trying to make those decisions. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. This is part of what I do in health.
Awesome.
I have to kind of understand this stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So basically, what happened is the stress piles up, and when the stress piles up, people start having more difficulty making decisions, clearing that out, and piles start to accumulate in their surrounding, in their home. And more piles are accumulating because the brain is managing all the information at the same time. It stresses out the brain even more. So then the cortisol rise again. And then people are stuck in a loop that we call the clutter vicious cycle. Now
But
the
the cortisol impacts every aspect of their health, because cortisol is running through your
oh
whole body,
yes.
even your saliva. So it is the biggest cause of disease, it's just having your body on high alert all the time. So aside from just having clutter in their home, they're basically creating a slow death for themselves. Well, actually, it's not that slow. So they do need to get that help because other things start to break down in the mind, right? Not just the functionality of clutter, right? So the
I
mental
agree.
focus and clarity and the ability to form rational decisions, all those things will be impacted, you know?
Yes,
Yes. So and they will have definitely have digestive issues, right? Because the gut and the brain talk all day long. And if your gut is upset, the rest of the body is, right?
totally.
So it is a very vicious cycle because when um it's just for me, for me to explain it, I would try to explain it in a way where your heart is always going like in AFib. So your normal heart rate is 60 to 100 and you're at 120, 120, 120, 120. And your body can't keep up at that rate. So it will keep going until it just stops, right?
Totally.
It'll give out. So it's
And
so I just want to make clear to everyone how very important it is to get that help and use the resources that are out there for you because to be on high alert emotionally, the impact that it has is
it's huge.
extraordinary. Physically, it's extraordinary. But you should be entitled to have a healthy, productive life, right?
Oh, yes. Everybody deserves that. People deserve to thrive, not to look at their, be bystanding, looking at their life passing in front of them, you know?
Do you
So,
think aside from the clutter, in your experience of working with people that have trauma, how does it impact their other relationships?
oh, totally. You know, when people are having clutter, they don't want to invite friends over or family over because they are ashamed and they start isolating themselves. So it's really affected not only because some family will fight them about their clutter, but also because they isolate themselves in their clutter. And unfortunately, it's too easy to go online and purchase these days and have that feel good moment when you just purchase, you know, and then opening and having all those boxes coming home that just worsen the clutter situation.
Yeah, so it's definitely an addictive tendency, you know, because
Is
it is so accessible. So tell us a little bit more about the do well method, and then I'd like you to read some highlighted areas that you think the audience can benefit from.
Yes. So the Duell method has 4 steps. The very first one is about reducing the stress because our goal is to reduce the cortisol naturally. So people are able to make decisions using and utilizing their executive functions. The second step is about mindset. We call it calm your mind because when people are able to make decisions, often what I see is I want to keep this, I'm ready to let go of that. But what if, and just in case, and I don't know, and that pile in the
Mm.
middle become the biggest one, you know, to be able to sort through it, people need to be aligned with who they are, not who they were in the past before the abuse or the trauma or whatever traumatic event that happened in their life. So there's a real discovery and unlocking of emotion when we talk about mindset and negative self talk that became more self care than negative, you know. And then we move to the third step that is time. I call it discover free time because we work on habit and routine. It's the perfect time when the executive functions start to kick in to build a new schedule in which we will include maintenance and decluttering in a regular basis. The other thing is, you know, we often observe that clutter is like a pendulum. You let go of it, it come back. You let go of it, it come back.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
problem is if you let go of it faster, it will come back faster. And that is what really bothered me with the order show, for example, where they come and they empty a place completely, you know, because it creates another trauma. The thing is, we need to stop that pendulum from happening. And for that, we need to find the right pace to declutter that people are able to manage and maintain. Because if we
Mm.
declutter too fast, it will just come back faster. So that's the third step. And the fourth step is the one everybody's waiting for. It is simplify your living space. Now that we have all the strategy learned in the three first steps, we can tackle the clutter in the easiest way, a way that is way more effective than if you go and declutter for 30 minutes or an hour in after this interview, you know. It will be way more effective. So it accelerates a lot when we get at that step.
So is part of this decluttering process identifying the underlying trauma and letting some of that go? Because I think if that you can really put yourself on the root cause of what happens, you know, and if you're coming in someone's home to help them declutter, they have to feel kind of comfortable with you, right?
Definitely,
So so
yes.
they are going to have to let go of that because it's been my experience that people trade one addiction for another
Yeah,
if you don't resolve the underlying cause.
true.
You know, people go to Alcoholics Anonymous and there's plenty of coffee and donuts and then they gain 30 pounds, so they just switch addictions, right? Because
I agree.
they need have that need to feel full, right? So
Yeah,
we have to really find a way to manage the underlying trauma and get it out, you know, because
that that we do in step number two in calming your mind. It's really the moment where, you know, we let go of the coping mechanism, but we let go of, you know, we are sometimes a victim, sometimes a survivor. And I always say, but I want you to thrive and be you, not identifying your identity through the trauma. Be able to discover who you are, be able to put that trauma down, you know, instead of being stay in that grip every day. So yeah, we have some visualization, some different tools that we use to really help make a distance from it and be able to live our life, choose and make the decision of what we want in our life.
yeah, we often don't have control over of a lot of the things that have happened to us, you know. And
True.
I think seeing I did this exercise with someone one time and you have to write down a list of things that you've gone through and you work with someone else and a lot of times things that you think you did to somebody else or things that happened because of yourself actually were not your part at all. It was somebody else's part. Like if you're a 9-year old, what part could you have in hurting someone else or, you know, um, so when you can see your part in things, I think that because I'm very big on reflection. So if things
Yeah,
don't go well, I look at, well, what did I do in this situation that could have changed the situation and made it better, made that communication really more interactive instead of, you know, so I like to see my part in things and then it helps me. I think, right?
yeah,
And
definitely.
I'm someone who's been through a lot of trauma, and it was owning my part in that, and what wasn't my part, like what control I didn't have in that situation. And sometimes when you can see the lack of control, it's easier not to feel a loss of control. I don't know if that makes sense, but
That makes
um,
sense. But it's
it,
not easy to agree and to say out loud, let's say that we didn't have control,
yeah, it's but it's not so much saying we don't have control because
that they were a part that we were not controlling. That's what I mean.
yeah, well, at 9 or you know, like what about things that happen to children with incest? What could they possibly do at 6 years old, right? Um, so I mean, they didn't have control in that situation, but they
Exactly.
do. The control they do have is whether or not to continue to let that destroy
Affecting
them.
them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so that's where the control comes back in. We now have a choice that we might not have been presented with earlier, right?
Yeah. That is funny how the discussion is going, because the section I selected in the book for tonight is a section that talk about being ready to commit to our change and to what we want in our life.
Okay. So let's hear it. We're gonna hear from put that stuff down.
Okay, so it's page 52. It's be ready to commit. Read carefully here and take notes, because this is imperative to the success of the decluttering journey. This is where the whole process really starts. The right beginning prepares for winning. Many people want to start directly with either the decluttering, the selection process, or setting up their organizer. For those who do it without being goal ready or mind ready, the result is often failure. They get discouraged, fall into the trap, and restart from the beginning, feeling overwhelmed, depressed, or hoarding. In order to achieve in decluttering your life, which can be a tremendous undertaking, you must be ready and believe it is possible. You will discover throughout the book how to package the process and goals into small steps, which will help you believe. When people suffer from traumatic events, they often develop a defense mechanism to block trust, increase skepticism, and remove some of their belief. To overcome these obstacles, we have discovered that a person must learn to believe in something. Another close person, a professional, a book, or a method. We will now show you the possibility and power of the decluttering journey. And there's some two quotes here that we share. One says, you only achieve what you believe. You only achieve what you believe. And the other one is, you can't change if you don't change.
Correct. The only one you can change is yourself.
Yeah.
That's the only one that we really have power of. And a lot of those 12-step programs teach that live and let live, clean your side of the street and that stuff, whether they're in Overeaters Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, whatever that is, they're teaching them to live and let live. Clean your side of the street. Don't worry about what's going on over here, and believe that something's possible. And if you can't believe in yourself, believe in something else until you do, right? So
Yeah.
even if it's just the process of what you're trying to do, to that you believe in, the do well method or whatever they're focused on to get through that process, if they don't believe they can do it, they have to trust the experience of the book or the leader or everything in that time, that there's hope, right?
Yeah. I call that borrowing the belief. You
Yeah.
borrow the belief from somebody else
Yeah.
for that period of time.
Yeah. That support is instrumental.
It is. And celebration is so important. I
Oh,
talked about
everything.
doing some small step, but celebrating every single small step is so important.
Absolutely. Even those failures, they lead you to success.
Yes.
I'm a firm believer in that. Yes, I am. So, do you want to
Yeah.
read another section for us?
Yes, I will try to just find. I know we have one section with. um, let's talk about Hannah transformation. Hannah struggled with severe anxiety and negative self talk, which made decluttering her one-bedroom apartment a daunting task. Traditional advice from counselor didn't help, and her attempts to declutter often resulted in overwhelming anxiety. Before I learned about the Put That Stuff Down program and read the book, I was very messy and disorganized in my one-bedroom apartment, she said, and with my desk at work. I had sought help from counselor predominantly about other issues, but still I had asked several for suggestion and support on how to declutter my apartment and better organize it. I was giving the standard type of advice that 1 minute read in a magazine article. However, that type of advice didn't help me at all. When I would try to declutter, I would have such a severe anxiety spell coupled with lots of negative self-talk. which would be so overwhelming that I couldn't get much done and would stop in under 10 minutes. The fear of having another such anxiety spell will keep me from trying again for several weeks, even several months. Another turning point came when she read Put That Stuff Down. The book helped her understand the connection between stress and clutter and provided actionable steps to manage her anxiety and declutter her space gradually. Reading Put That Stuff Down helped me realize I was not alone in my struggle, and also helped me understand the clear connection between long-standing stress and the blocks I had between myself and successfully decluttering. This book gave me the all-important connection between my tendency to easily go into fight or flight mode with my inability to declutter my personal stuff. With better control over cortisol levels and improved time management, Anna was able to follow the steps recommended in the book. She started with short decluttering sessions and gradually increased her capacity to declutter for longer periods without feeling overwhelmed. Once I had better control over my cortisol level, as well as organizing my time better, another section of their book, I was ready to learn the step that this book recommends to take on the act of decluttering. Once I learned those, I could better manage decluttering and persevere in 15-minute segments with pauses in between for a little happy dance. After a few weeks of successfully doing this, I was able to work in 30-minute segments and keep going and not be overwhelmed. This shift in my ability to take control of my personal space is so rewarding. So that's from Anna.
That's beautiful. I think it's great what you're out there doing. Where could people find this book?
People can find this book on our website, and we will put a special link with the special offers in the comment if it's possible.
Yes, absolutely.
And that way people will give a discount on the book.
Okay, that's great. I think this is going to help a lot of people. Is there anything else that you have in the future that you're working on, another book or something you want to share with the audience?
Yes, we're working right now, and it should be published probably in the next month because it's at layout right now. It is called The Art of Getting Started.
Oh, I love that.
So
I
that will be
love that. Everybody's sitting on the sidelines, nobody getting started. I love it.
yeah, so that will be our next book, The Art of Getting Started.
That's great. Is that going to be around clutter or
It
trauma?
will about both,
Okay.
but really about how to start decluttering, how to start the process. You know, there's so many people saying I'm lazy or saying I procrastinate and things like that. So to be able to break those loop and break those negative self-talk and be able to take action.
Yeah.
That is what it will be about, being able to start taking action.
I believe that self-talk is really, so many people don't understand that the words that they say actually creates the life they're living. I read Shad Helmstetter's The Things We Say When We Talk to Ourselves so many years ago, and it was life-changing for me. Because when I started doing what was in that book and just being very aware of the things I said to myself on a day-to-day basis, I couldn't even believe the things I was telling myself.
Yeah.
It's a growth process. But I do want to tell anybody that's listening in the audience, if you're suffering from trauma or addiction or cluttering, whatever it is that you're suffering with, it is about getting started and taking those small steps and looking for that support, because these things are really hard to unpack by yourself. And I don't recommend trying to do it by yourself. If you've been living with trauma for a really long time, it does have to be unpacked because you deserve that quality of life that we were talking about. But find someone you trust that you can start doing that work with, right? And
Yeah,
certainly reach
don't do
out
it
to us
alone.
too. So Valerie, I wanna thank you so much for coming in, audience. I want to thank you for staying and listening to this week's session of Narrative Nights, and we will see you very soon. Have a great night.